You're standing in the kitchen. The cup is in the wrong place. Again. And suddenly, you're furious. Not a little annoyed. Furious. Your jaw tightens. Your chest gets hot. You snap at someone who didn't even do anything wrong. And then, 3 minutes later, you're standing there thinking, why did I just react like that? It was just a cup. Sound familiar? Here's what nobody tells you. That anger, it wasn't about the cup. It was never about the cup. And once you understand what it's actually about, your entire relationship with anger changes forever. I'm not going to give you the usual advice. No, count to 10. No, take deep breaths. That stuff works for maybe 40 seconds. What I'm going to show you today goes much, much deeper. And honestly, it might make you a little uncomfortable. Because the truth about your anger is more personal than you think. Stay with me. Most people think of anger like a switch. Something happens, you get angry. Simple cause and effect. But psychologists have known for decades that anger is almost never the primary emotion. It's a secondary emotion, which means something else always comes first. Think of it like an iceberg. The anger is the part you see above the surface, loud, sharp, visible. But underneath, there's this massive, hidden layer of emotions that were already there before the trigger ever happened. Things like fear, shame, exhaustion, feeling invisible, feeling disrespected, feeling out of control. The cup on the wrong shelf didn't make you angry. What made you angry is that you've asked 3 times for it to be put back, and every time it's ignored, a small voice inside you says, I don't matter here. Nobody listens to me. That's the real wound. The cup just touched it. Dr. Leon Seltzer, a clinical psychologist, describes anger as a protective mechanism. Your brain uses it as a shield because feeling rage feels more powerful than feeling hurt. Anger gives you energy. Sadness makes you feel weak. So the brain converts the pain into anger, almost automatically, faster than conscious thought. You didn't choose to get angry. Your nervous system chose it for you, to protect you from something that felt too vulnerable to feel directly. This is the first thing you need to understand. You are not an angry person. You are a hurt person whose brain learned to use anger as armor. Okay, so why does it happen over small things specifically? Why not big things? Why can you handle a work crisis calmly but completely lose it when someone chews too loudly? There's a concept in neuroscience called stress inoculation, and there's also its ugly opposite, which I'll call stress accumulation. Here's how it works. Every single day, your nervous system absorbs stress like a sponge. Traffic, a passive-aggressive email, a bad night's sleep, a conversation that left you feeling unseen, financial pressure you haven't fully processed, a memory that surfaced unexpectedly, a body that's tired but hasn't rested. None of these things break you individually. You handle them, you move on, you're fine. But the sponge keeps filling. By the time evening comes, or by day 3 of a rough week, that sponge is completely saturated. There is no more room. And then someone leaves a cup in the wrong place, and the sponge overflows. That tiny trigger didn't create the reaction. It just happened to arrive at the exact moment the system had nothing left to absorb it with. The cup got the full force of 3 days of unprocessed stress, plus the specific emotional wound underneath it. This is why the same person can say something on a Tuesday and you laugh, and say the exact same thing on a Thursday and you want to walk out of the room. It was never about what they said. It was about what your nervous system was carrying before they said it. And here's the part that stings a little. The people who trigger your small thing anger are almost never the actual source of your pain. They're just the last straw on a pile that was building quietly, invisibly, for days, sometimes years. Now we go deeper. Because for some people, the small thing anger isn't just about today's stress. It's wired in from a long time ago. Here's something your brain did when you were a child that it never asked your permission for. When you were young, your nervous system was being programmed, learning what the world was like, what was safe, what was threatening. And if you grew up in an environment where there was chaos, criticism, unpredictability, emotional neglect, or control, your threat detection system got calibrated very high. Meaning, your brain learned to treat small things as potential big threats. Because back then, sometimes they were. A small shift in a parent's tone meant something was about to happen. A small mess could lead to a big reaction from someone else. A small mistake could mean love was temporarily withdrawn. Your child brain, brilliantly, smartly, learned to stay on high alert, always scanning, always ready. The problem is that you're not a child anymore, but that threat detection system is still running the same software. So now, when a small thing happens, someone's tone shifts, someone ignores you, something feels out of your control, the alarm goes off. Not because the present moment is actually dangerous, but because it rhymes with something from the past that was. Psychologists call these emotional triggers, and the most powerful ones are almost always rooted in childhood experiences around control, love, respect, and safety. That's why the things that make you angriest are often very specific. They follow a pattern. Because they're not random, they're echoes. Maybe you go cold when someone dismisses your idea, because as a kid, your voice was never taken seriously. Maybe you rage when someone is late, because growing up, waiting meant being forgotten. Maybe you snap when something is messy, because chaos in your environment meant something was wrong at home. Your triggers are not flaws, they are memories wearing a disguise. Here's the reframe that changes everything. Anger is not your enemy. Anger is a messenger. Every time you get angry, especially over something small, your anger is pointing at something real, something you need, something you've lost, something you're afraid of, or something that's been building too long without acknowledgement. The problem isn't that you feel anger. The problem is that most of us were never taught how to listen to it. Instead, we do one of two things. We either explode, let the anger out sideways onto whoever's nearest over whatever's available. Or we suppress, push it down, go quiet, tell ourselves it's not a big deal, pretend we're fine. Neither of those processes the actual message, so the anger keeps coming back, louder, over smaller and smaller triggers, because the original message was never received. The next time you notice anger rising, especially over something that logically seems too small, try asking yourself 3 questions. 1. What am I actually feeling underneath this? Fear? Shame? Loneliness? Exhaustion? Disrespect? 2. What do I actually need right now? Rest? To be heard? To feel in control of something? To have my effort acknowledged? 3. What is this reminding me of? Does this situation echo something older, something from before today? You don't have to answer these out loud in the moment, but even asking them quietly creates a small pause between the trigger and the reaction, and in that pause, you're no longer on autopilot. That pause is where your power lives. Here's what I want you to walk away with today. You are not broken because you get angry over small things. You are human, with a nervous system that accumulated more than it could process, a past that left certain wounds sensitive to the touch, and a brain that learned to protect you the only way it knew how. The cup was never the problem. The email was never the problem. The tone of voice, the late reply, the small mess, none of it was ever the actual problem. The real work, the work that actually changes things, is learning to hear what your anger is saying before it has to scream. Not suppressing it, not performing calm, but genuinely listening, the way you'd listen to a friend who was clearly hurting but refusing to say so. Because that's what your anger is. It's a part of you that's hurting and doing the only thing it knows to get your attention. Start listening. If this hit differently than you expected, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want me to go deeper on any part of this, the body-based anger work, the childhood trigger patterns, or how to actually process emotions instead of just suppressing them, let me know in the comments. I read them all.